It's wonderful to be with you for this another edition of the Coaching Hour. Hello, hello. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Paul Rotherham, and I'm joined once again by my co-hosts and friends, Mary and Mareka. Ladies, greetings to you.
Hi, Paul.
Greetings.
Nice to have you here, and thank you very much for tuning in, as it were. That's what we used to say in the old days of radio. I think tuning in these days is an expression, but it certainly isn't what you do, because you don't tune anything. You just click on a link and here you are. And here we are. And it's always great to have you with us. So thank you so much. We have a wonderful guest for you once again on this edition of the Coaching Hour podcast, proudly brought to you in partnership with Coaches Network SA. Mareka is going to set up today's interview.
Good. Thank you so much, Paul, for that lovely introduction, as always. Yes, we're going to have for the second time on the Coaching Hour, Hanna Kok. She's the happy ever after coach. And last time we spoke about affirmations, which was quite fascinating. And we'll put that link also in the description if you want to watch that conversation. And I'm assuming that the, what do we call that code?
QR code.
QR code. I start feeling old when I can't remember these names. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they can actually find the app, when they scan the code. Correct, yes. But today we're going to talk about something very different. Our topic for today is bitter or better, which is quite interesting. But Hanna Kok, I know we've met you before, but there might be some of our listeners that's meeting you for the first time. Just a quick introduction, what you do, and then, we'll have a nice discussion in terms of the topic.
Right, so I'm the Happy Ever After coach, and that is all about creating happiness from the inside out. And I do it with coaching. I also do it with the application that I've developed, but it's all about changing the mindset first, and then your external life changes as well. That's
Okay, awesome.
nutshell.
So, bitter or better. Now, why did you choose this topic?
Well, I actually joined a group that works with getting people to tell their story. And I was sharing the story there of something that happened to me of already quite a long time, 1996, where I lost my husband through an armed robbery. We don't know if it was a robbery or a murder, actually an attack. And I had to make that choice, am I going to get bitter or better? And at the time, my son was 16 months old. And I knew that if I was going to be bitter, my son would have lost two parents that night, because I would have been just gobbled up by my bitterness. And not only that, would I have not been functional as a person, I knew as well that, later I learned I have prevented myself from getting ill as well, because becoming bitter is, that resentment, that anger, that bitterness is poison to the body, and probably would have led to cancer or something like that further down the line if I hadn't chosen to become better. And and it is a choice. I was very fortunate that before this incident happened, I had the knowledge that, forgiveness is so important. It's not that I'm doing it for the other person. I'm doing it for me, to set myself free from the incident, and then I can move forward, create a better life.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, I'm sorry to hear that, Hanna. That's it's tragic. And I think the first thing that comes to mind for me, without in any way making your experience any less, is that is something that sadly, so many South Africans have experienced. I think the world over, humans do experience loss and disappointment and sadness. But where we are in South Africa, crime really is an issue, and we certainly won't focus on that today. But I will almost guarantee that many people who are watching this have suffered the same loss that you had through the same circumstances. So we're really sorry to hear that. It's a long time ago, but I'm sure the wound is still there.
Sure, but you know what? When I stood at my husband's grave, because before he died, a while before, we had been discussing, why are we making a living instead of making a life? We so caught up in just doing something we don't want to do just to earn money, and throwing our life away and wasting our precious time. And then we thought, oh, we would like to start like a retreat center. Now, this is in Lesotho. I lived in rural Lesotho at the time. So it was, as I said, 1996, but we didn't have a phone, we didn't have radio. Oh, we did have radio, but we didn't have TV, we didn't have electricity, water, everything we had to organize ourselves. So we wanted to start a retreat center. We renovated the colonial house to have guests, and then we got scared. We thought, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get clients? How are we going to organize it all without this phone and without communication? And this is another thing, that we get so easily caught up in the how that we kill a dream that we had. And then, so when he died, at his grave, because of all the knowledge that I had, I could make the statement and say, I'm going to make this one of the best things that happened to me, so that I can honor what he stood for, and I can continue what we wanted to do together. And that is when I started doing the coaching and doing this work that I'm doing. And forgiveness is such an integral part of the work that I do with the coaching, even with the affirmations, bringing in some sort of divine energy to make us whole again. And that's why I feel he set me free, because we were in a family business and it was very difficult to move away. And because of his passing, I could move away. There's another thing that also helped me a lot to make peace with the whole thing, was that shortly after he died, a friend of mine had written a book on death and dying. And miraculously, that book arrived 3 days after he died, in the post in this rural village, okay? And she'd sent it from the US. So it was a miracle that it arrived there and then. And as I was reading it, she said in the book that on a soul level, 3 days before we die, we make the decision to go. And he had written in his journal 3 days before he died, I am so stuck, because we didn't want to run the shop anymore. We didn't see how we could do this dream. And so he wrote, I'm so stuck. It's time to move on. All I want to do is sit and meditate and watch my son grow up. And so it was as if 3 days before it was decided for him to go. And then, yes, those people that then did whatever they did were just part of that plan. So it makes it all so much easier. I think it's so important for other people that have been through this, that they realize on a soul level, there was a decision made to go. It's never random. It's never random, even though it looks random, it's not. Like, we were stuck, and being stuck is really a dangerous thing, because then you're inviting something to break open the whole difficult situation. Some form of crisis is going to come to get you moving again, because our soul wants to grow. And if we don't grow voluntarily, then the universe will bring this cosmic club to get us moving again. And that's what happened to me. And I decided I'm going to make this a good move.
Sure.
We're sitting here today if it wasn't for that.
Yeah, wow. It's such a story. And I mean, even as you're saying it, it wasn't easy at the time.
No.
To let go of the bitterness is not something that it doesn't come in that moment and okay, now I'll move forward. It takes work, right?
Well, as I said to you before, I had learned about the power of forgiveness, and I had learned about the danger of bitterness before I lost it. So I could make that decision instantly. There was another, also, you know, it's amazing when you open your eyes and ears and live more consciously, how answers are given, how you're prepared for things before they happen. So like another thing was, before it happened, a lady had come to visit and she had lost her daughter suddenly through some meningitis or something. So a freak thing, they'd gone swimming, she ended with meningitis, 3 days later she was gone. And she came to visit and she was going like, why? This was now 3 years later. I'm going like, I cannot afford that. I have a son to look after. You know, as I said, 60 months old. He needs me. And I cannot get stuck in the why and the bitterness. So I was very fortunate that in the period between him going and the funeral, I could do the forgiveness. I did not go even down the bitterness route. And that's why I want to share my story so that people can realize I cannot afford this bitterness. Not, and for the people that have experienced it, and for the people who might experience a crisis. Forgiveness is the way through so that you have the energy to become better, because everything is there in our life as an opportunity to get better.
Mary.
Yes, that's so interesting that you said that, because I had a dream last night about forgiveness. But what I wanted to ask you is that what did you need to forgive?
There's two things I needed to forgive. I'm so glad you asked. Let me tell you first. Well, first, of course, I had to forgive the perpetrators, but I also had to forgive myself. And let me give you a little bit of more in the story. So it happened at night. They took us, well, my husband and I had been sleeping in different rooms. We were living in rondavels and the baby was keeping him awake. So he was sleeping in the other rondavel. And he had been often worried about, you know, what if we get robbed? And I thought, we'll manage it. Somehow we'll be okay. And there were loud noises and they said, police, open up. And I was about to get up to open up and my son started to cry and I was still nursing him. So I immediately went back to bed and put him to my breast to nurse him to make sure that he would not be heard. And then I heard my husband open up and I could hear the way he was speaking to how he was speaking to them, that there was something wrong. And then I started praying. I prayed for his protection. And I just put him in the light. I put the angels around him. So people can pray however they want to do. But I also knew the importance of not sending fear, because that weakens the other person. So I'm sending all this love and protection and angels and whatever I could think of. And then I got scared, really, really scared. And then I heard the gunshots. And when I waited and made sure everybody was gone, then is when I found him. And the funny thing, or the amazing thing was, he was lying in the doorway with his back to the door. Now, you do not put your hostage in the doorway with the back to the door. That's where you stand as the person in charge. But then somebody had come from behind and hit him over the head, and then they shot him. And could be that while I was praying, or put him all that energy there, he somehow managed to overpower them, because that was the type of guy he was. He was like a crazy man. He overpowered them, and I'm afraid to say there's a big chance that because I got scared, it did, you know, he lost it, or I don't know. So I did have to forgive myself for that, just in case that is how it was. Yeah, that's all I can. So there's always forgiveness for the other people, but definitely we have to forgive ourselves for the role we play in this situation.
Then how did you do it? How did you do the actual process of forgiveness? What did you do? What did you say?
So what I say, and by the way, if people go on the QR code and sign up for the affirmations, try it out for free, there's a free forgiveness course is there to keep. Okay, and that explains the whole forgiveness process as well. So first of all, I knew that if I forgive somebody, I don't have to let them back into my life, you know. And with these people, they knew who it was. They were never arrested, but I knew it's not my problem. So I've had to forgive them for that. And what I do is say, even though I disapprove of what happened or I don't like what happened, I accept that it happened. And I forgive them from the bottom of my heart. And sometimes you have to say it over and over again. Or I can say, in the beginning, a person can say, I'm willing to forgive them from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah.
Because it's very important that what you say, you believe it. Even if it doesn't go away completely, you can start with, I'm willing to forgive them. I'm willing to forgive them. And repeat that a couple of times until you feel, okay, I'm ready. Because remember, we're doing it for ourselves. We're not doing it for them. And then I do the same for myself. So even though I regret I got scared and I wasn't able to prevent him from being shot, and I wasn't able to prevent this from happening, and I accept it happened. And I forgive myself from the bottom of my heart.
Sounds
That's
to me,
how.
Hanna, as though acceptance really is key in this whole process. And I think in the modern world where we're all taught we control our own lives, we determine where we're going, we decide what path we're on, with that has almost come this belief that we can control everything, where in fact we can't. We have this illusion that we have control. And an incredible man, Mark Kahn, once said to me, he said that it is an illusion that we have control. All that we actually have is anxiety, because very little about our lives is controllable. And I think the more or the quicker we accept that, the sooner we will get to the place where you are. And I really admire you, because I think many people, myself included, certainly the old Paul, not the new Paul, would have been living with that resentment and that bitterness and that wanting to mete out my own justice. And that just eats you up, man. It literally poisons you and kills you from the inside.
Well, absolutely. Now, the only thing we do have control over, just to address that control issue, because we have more control, but it's different than we think it is. The control we have over is how we respond to any given situation. Now, that response will give us our mindset. It gives us our focus, etc. Now, our conscious brain only processes 40 seconds of information per second. That's as much as we can process. So what you're hearing, what you're seeing, you feel your chair, that is the type of information, 40 pieces of information. How much do you think the subconscious mind is processing at the same time? How much do you think?
Now, I think we've heard these stats from a few coaches, and I don't remember the exact number, but I think it's tens of thousands, if
No,
not
it's
more.
a million times more. A million. So to put that in perspective, if our 40 pieces of information is 1 second, there's somebody here at the gate. I don't know, he's a delivery person. I'm just going to call him out the window. He must come in. Just hang on a second.
No problem. It's funny how that always happens, because these delivery people, you can't control when they come. We were talking about control, and that's exactly, because you can't schedule when the delivery guy comes, and it's always when you're online or on the phone or in a meeting. It always
But you see
happens.
now the coaching Paul, who's been exposed to all these wonderful coaches through these podcasts that we do, I would actually turn that around. And I would start saying, one of the reasons that those delivery people always come when you are busy is because each time they come, you tell yourself, why is it that they always come when I'm busy?
I'm so
So,
impressed, Paul. You are learning.
so what you should actually do is when you are expecting a delivery, and this has happened to me, believe it or not, in the
Yes.
past. And I
Uh-huh.
know I have a busy day. I'm in and out. I've got a lunch meeting and an appointment, and I'm doing whatever I do. I make this mental note, and I say to myself, and it is almost an affirmation since we're chatting with Hannah, and I
Yes.
say, the delivery is going to arrive at a time that is convenient for me. And
Wow.
lo and behold,
Completely.
that is what happens. But
Exactly.
That
because
is true.
we live in
Well
this state
done.
of
Impressed with you.
fear.
I wasn't expecting the delivery.
Don't
That's why
make
I didn't
excuses
do it.
now, Hannah. No excuses.
I'm impressed, Paul. You see how our beliefs, yeah,
Yeah, so
shapes.
I want to build on that. So just to put that those stats in perspective, right? 1 second is what we see, and our subconscious mind at the same time processes 12 days of information.
Wow.
So it has to filter the 12 days down and show you 1 second. How does it filter down 12 days of information to 1 second? It's you have what you call the RAS, reticular activating system. This is basically this whole algorithm thing that the internet does is copied from our brain. So what you focus on becomes your filter. Like you just bought a new car and now all of a sudden it looks like everybody's driving that car. We know the idea, right? So because it is in line for what I'm focused on, what my beliefs are, etc. Now, if you're bitter, then you will get all the information to confirm that you have the right to be bitter, that it is okay to be bitter, and then you get more things just to keep your bitterness in place. If you do your forgiveness work, now you put another filter on, you start getting another second. That is how you control your environment. There's a lot of bad things going on around us, but if we have different glasses on, it's not part of our reality.
Very
That
true.
is how you can influence what is happening in your life. And that's also when you start seeing opportunities, when it depends on the filter that you have on, based on what your beliefs are and how you
And
feel.
we've known this for years because I remember as a young boy, my dad often using the analogy of the glass being half full, half empty. It's exactly the same thing, really. The meaning behind that is the same. Which filter are you choosing?
Yeah. And I think it's really important that people realize 1 second of 12 days. So if this is your reality, it's not the only possible reality. There are so many other options. But if you keep on focusing what is going on right now and what is wrong, that is what you get confirmed over and over again.
I
And
think
that's
just if I may, we don't have too much time left, but if I may, we've also got to be realistic, Hannah, because if I'm thinking back to that day when you lost your husband, that terrible, tragic day that you chose to turn the bitterness into becoming better, I'm guessing, and I get this is a question, in fact, there were still changes that you had to make in the real world to deal with having experienced that situation. For instance, if you now realize that there is uncertainty in that area where your living isn't safe, people don't like you, it's all well and good having this positivity, but you have to channel that into some form of action to say, okay, I'm going to get out of here.
exactly, because it can be warning signs. And that's why I'm also saying if you feel stuck, do something about it. You have to do some form of action, definitely. Let that action come from, ideally, you don't want to make an action out of fear, but you want to say, okay, what feels right for me to do right now to make a change? because then you know you want to go the love route. So following what feels good, what inspires you, what you're attracted to, that is the direction you want to go, because you got to go somewhere. If you're stuck, you're asking for a club. And also what you say, Paul, absolutely, if you feel unsafe, make sure your doors are locked. Make sure you have the security systems in place. Definitely. Because you really have to be a master to create safety without those things. You know, don't still go and lock your car. Still do those things. Definitely.
Yeah, that's very
Sorry,
yes.
carry on, Marika.
Now, what I wanted to say is how many people actually get stuck in the bitterness, not only when something like this happens, but if they're in a bad work situation and or stuff that happened in the past and resentment that they're holding against people and not moving forward. If you don't become aware that this is eating you up and it's toxic to you, you get stuck in that victim mindset. And yeah, I don't know, I see many people that fall into that mindset of becoming the victim of this, that stuff that they keep on repeating and repeating and repeating that happened in the past, not realizing that they can move forward. There's other options.
Now, one more thing, what I always say when I work with people and on that forgiveness course, I explain that as well, is that people, everything outside of us is a reflection of what's going on inside of us. So if we are finding that people around us are rude and disrespectful, if we want to change it, the first place to look at is, where am I disrespectful and rude to myself?
Yeah.
How we talk to ourselves, how many people call themselves an idiot and stupid and useless and a loser. If we would just take time to listen how we talk to ourselves, it's shocking how we talk to ourselves. And then we get upset when somebody else outside of us does it, you know. And that is how we can change our environment, is start changing the way we treat ourselves. And that does not mean, oh, I'm so valuable, I can now spend thousands of rands on myself.
Yes.
No, it's about taking time to sit with your emotions, to acknowledge your emotions, to do a bit of brain gym exercises. I'm sure Andrea and I've spoken about it, and on my website there's also stuff there. Do meditation or something for your emotional inner well-being. That is how you take care of yourself. Talk nicely to yourself. Talk to yourself. I always say, if we could talk to ourselves the way we speak to our children, or a puppy for that matter, if you love puppies or if you love children, right? If you don't love children, then this doesn't apply. But if you do, how do you speak to them? Now start speaking to that inner child yourself like that. Life becomes so much more friendly when we do that.
Definitely. Mary, you had a question.
Yeah, so I was to go back to before you said I don't know what you said now, I've forgotten. The senses, you know, when something shocking happens, or when you get a clop, like you said, what do you call it? Universal
Cosmic
clop.
club.
Cosmic clop. When you get a cosmic clop, then what happens to the senses? Do they come alive, or do you go into panic mode?
It depends. Different people, different things. I tend to go numb, so you don't have to feel. I think that's what I would, that happens to me at first. Like, yeah, that's what I would do. I'll go numb. Now, another great trick, it doesn't matter what you feel, if you're angry or bitter or numb, how to get out of it is you take these 4 fingers, you put your index and your middle finger together on both hands, you put them in the middle of your forehead, like in the middle where your irises are, and then between your eyebrows and where your hairline used to be for the men and for the ladies where the hairline is. And then you feel that feeling. So like you're angry. And then you say, you know what? I'm angry. I'm really, really angry. And it's okay that I am angry. I give myself permission to feel this anger. And you just breathe and you focus on it. And then I forgive myself for feeling angry. It's okay. And then you'll find after a while it's not so easy to stay that angry, because physiologically, by putting our fingers on the forehead, we physiologically pulling ourselves out of the survival brain and switching on our higher wisdom again. And then when you find your mind to wander, maybe there's another emotion that pops up that you can work through. And otherwise, if you feel calm, then you connect with that sense of calmness and work it through. And that is a great way of looking after yourself, you know, taking time to do that.
Thank you so much. Wow, I love these practical tools and techniques, because sometimes we get stuck in your mind and you keep repeating the same situation over and over again. And if you can just have tools, that's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure the people that's watching and listening, you know, can take this and use it whenever they feel stuck or to process emotions. Very valuable. Thank you.
Thank you. I can just highly recommend, please go and sign, even if you go to the affirmations.co website, you can see there my name there. You can go to that website and directly sign up for the forgiveness course. It's free. It's short videos you can watch. A lot of the things that I've explained is in there and more. Yeah, it's a gift you give to yourself.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Hanna. We appreciate you coming back onto the coaching hour. And I think there are still volumes of knowledge and experience and expertise that you could share with us. So we do look forward to having you on again sometime in the future.
Thank you so much for this opportunity again. And yeah, I love chatting to you all. Thank you.
Mary, Marika, thanks so much. And to you watching or listening to this, thank you for joining us. Remember, you can post any questions or comments that you have in the comments section. We'd love to hear from you as well. Until the next time, cheers for now.